Hello, I'm Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 42 of the Weekly podcast. Thank you very much for everyone for your support. Thank you very much to Lauren Cole for the episode last week. It was very interesting to talk about acting, stage, screen, all those different things that I kind of nerd about and have never done. So it was interesting to talk to someone who's been there and done that. That's the whole point of this podcast, actually, to talk to people who have done things that I haven't, and there's many people out there. Listen, I know I keep going on about it, but if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, it would be brilliant. Just to get the numbers up so we can get it out there and, maybe get some ads on it and all that kind of stuff, I've said it before and all that, but if you think of it, you might do it for us. So I'm going to introduce my guest this week. She's undefeated in Bellator with a 3-0 record, and her name is Danni Neilan. Danni, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? How are you getting on?
I'm good now. Yeah, I'm. It's so strange recording, and it's getting dark out, and it's lashing rain, and I don't know what's it like over in Mullingar at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit overcast. It's like raining on and off.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Well, it's coming into winter. What can you do? So Danni, I'm going to start where I always do, just with a short history of your upbringing, please.
Yeah. So I grew up on a farm in Roscommon. So I did. Sorry, I hear the TV on in the background. Do you mind if I just tell him to turn it off?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, he's just confusing me. Sorry.
That's all right. Just while Danny's going to tell.
Turn that off, just
turn the TV down.
Thanks. Thank you. Sorry, he was going outside for a run, but I see he came back in, so it must mean it's raining.
Oh, that's all right. No problem.
He's jumped on the treadmill, and the TV goes on full belt as well, and then I won't hear anything.
Okay.
So, anyway, sorry. Yeah, so I come from Roscommon, from a farm, and I grew up there, I guess. Rode horses for years. Started riding when I was 4. And went to school in Athlone, in Our Lady's Bower, and then went to Yates to a grind school for my leaving cert years. So I guess most of my background is just country girl from the west of Ireland, and spent most of my childhood on the back of a pony or chasing around a field after something. So that was pretty much it. Farmer through and through.
So obviously your parents were into horse riding and stuff. They got you into it, obviously, was it?
Yeah, my parents weren't into it at all.
Okay.
I was born with this pony in my head from a very small age. I was constantly going on about, I want a pony, I want a horse, from really, really small toddler. And they tried their damnedest to ignore it. And they definitely didn't want to buy a pony. Like most farmers, a horse or a pony is a useless animal on a farm nowadays. So they tried to push me off it as much as they could, but I just persisted. And one year I got a rocking horse. One year I got a stuffed horse, and I was disgusted every year this was happening. And then finally they agreed to send me down the road to the local riding school, and sure, the minute they did that, then they'd lost the battle. That was it.
Yeah. You hear about that an awful lot, about kids that they want a pony or a horse and stuff. So it's great that you eventually got your wish, even though you had to work through like maybe a stuffed toy rocking horse, but you got there at the end.
Yeah, and it doesn't just end there. I guess I didn't get that perfect My Little Pony that all of the wealthier girls, I would say, got. That lovely white pony that does everything it's told. Quite the opposite. So my father, a guy owed him money for bales. A horse dealer owed him money and wouldn't pay him. And he said, well, my daughter's stone mad for a horse. And he says, well, for the kind of money I owe you, I'll be giving you something very cheap. So Dad happily took what he was getting and loaded it up and brought it home to me.
Wow.
And it wasn't even broken or trained. So it was just like a 2-year-old, pretty wild. So that was my first pony. We had to get it broken in, and I don't think I stayed on its back for longer than 2 minutes without getting thrown off. So
Oh, well.
it didn't work out exactly how I had imagined.
No, but I suppose, look, it was a start. So Danny, when did you first become aware of mental health?
So I guess from a child, really, my mum would always say that she knew from when I was a child that I was going to struggle with my mental health, or that I showed some signs. So mum is a community nurse for children under 3, children with needs, and she's quite switched on with everything. And she's, even as a child, I was quite anxious. I spent most of my childhood not asleep in my own bed, in someone else's bed. So I was quite, wound up and needy, but very confident child. And I don't think people outside the family would have noticed. I was overconfident and always said too much as a child. But at the bottom of it all, then I was always kind of stuck to mum when I was at home, or I'd be worrying or thinking about something. So that kind of continued on then into teenage years, with exams, and it really came to the forefront around my leaving cert, and my repeat leaving cert. Even that year when I repeated, I had to leave school 6 weeks early from before the leaving cert, the second one, because I was so wound up and so stressed. And I did the rest of it at home, and did my exams then. So yeah, mum would always say from a small child, that was when she knew there was I was going to be something I'd find hard.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose, like a lot of now, I wouldn't say that parents would be able to see it. Obviously, your mother was had worked within that kind of what would be the right phrase for that? Like, but she worked with.
Well, healthcare, really, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like,
yeah, exactly. Where she could see other kids and she could obviously see similar traits. So I suppose a lot of kids maybe went unnoticed. The nervous and anxiety kind of anxious kids went unnoticed, and it was fortunate in a way for you that you could kind of be prepared for it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that
Yeah, and we'll definitely be getting back into it. Sorry.
And that mum could support me, I guess. She supported me. She didn't treat me any different.
Yeah.
She wasn't afraid of it.
Yeah, that's another massive thing as well. And like, we'll be getting back into a relation to obviously the sport you do now. But I was researching there. I was saying to you before the recording. I was researching a bit, and I didn't realize that you actually got quite into horse racing. You were training quite hard in it, and you had amateur races and stuff like that. How far did it go? Did you go in the sport?
Well, I guess if I rewind a little bit, that the whole racing thing started when I was still in school. So when I was doing my leaving cert, 5th and 6th year, around that time, I started riding out in a racing yard during the summers and over weekends. And I was really determined that I was going to get enough points to become a vet. So that was kind of my first goal, or ambition in life, was to get veterinary. And that's why I ended up repeating my leaving cert. The first year, I just I got 490, and the next year I got 540. So veterinary was 555, and I missed out the second year running. So it was from there I kind of threw my dummies out with a pram and said, well, if I can't get veterinary, I don't want to do anything else. I think my CEO was actually blank. Apart from that, CAO, is it? CAO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't have any other options, because I had refused to accept anything else. So that's when I was going to ride out full time. And the yard I was in County Galway, actually, they were brilliant, and they said, listen, you're at nothing here with us. We're small yard, and you're not going to grow or develop here. You need to go to the Curragh. So they advised me to go to the Curragh, and they advised me to go to Desi Hughes. And I just kept ringing him and hounding him, and he eventually gave me a job, and I moved everything down there. and just took time off straight after school and said, right, I'm going to give this racing crack a go. So I worked for Desi for 6 years, 2 years full time, and then 4 years part-time while I did a degree for the final 4 years. I did okay, you know. I rode my own horse in point to points. I rode in an amateur race for Desi, but I knew like very quickly from when I arrived, my level was not the level that was in the Curragh, and I was also a girl, so it was very difficult. You know, I was never going to be a top lady rider. I My skills weren't bad, but they weren't good enough. But more, I guess, more to the point was that I didn't have any connections in racing. And as a girl in horse racing, you need to be really an elite rider to get noticed without having a backing. And I didn't have a backing. I didn't have a family or that in it. So it was tough. But once I got working down there, you know, I loved it. It didn't matter whether I was going to ride in a champion bumper or in a big race or anything like that. I wasn't even thinking like that. I was just thinking about going into work every day and riding out and getting better. And it was really one of the best times of my life down there.
So to kind of jump back into anxiety, so how was your anxiety around the horses then and around the guards and stuff like that? Was it a big issue then, or was it kept in check a bit?
So I guess it was something that I definitely noticed the first few years, but it wasn't that big of a deal. So I came off the leaving cert years completely wound up, and then the Curragh was such a relief, and it was a real break. I worked so hard that I don't think my anxiety or my mental health, you know, got a chance to get going at all. It really, the hard work kind of countered that. You know, I was constantly tired when I was at home, so I didn't have time to think about anything. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I loved that if you just worked really hard, you got appreciated, and you just rinsed and repeated, you just kept doing it. So for the first 4 years, I think it was all going really well. And then it was when I started my physio degree, I suppose the final 2 years of that degree, while also working, that's when I started seeing it again. I started getting quite fatigued and stressed about everything, and, you know, really overwhelmed with the amount I had on my plate.
Now, I suppose from there, it's quite a difference in horse racing and MMA. So, how did you first become involved then in a combat sport?
Yeah, so to kind of continue on with the story, then it was really my last year in physio. When I was doing my final exams, I had like the worst year ever. It was just one thing happened after another. So our house in Kildare was robbed by a lad that actually lived in the house with us.
Oh.
And I crashed a horse box into a bridge with a horse in it. My top horse that I owned myself, that I won lots of rosettes with in Dublin Horse Show with, even really talented hunt chase horse I had gotten rescued from the ISPCA. He got liver disease from a parasite that he picked up in Roscommon, which I kind of blamed myself for, and he died. And then my point horse died of the same parasite. Then I had a newborn foal born with brain damage, and then died 2 days later of tetanus. So within this year, it was just one thing after another. It was just a dreadful year. And I was also crippled with debt. So with all of this going on, I wasn't making any money from the ponies that I was buying and selling and trying to kind of survive off. The recession had hit the horse racing industry big time, and no one wanted to buy a pony at all. So this was just a really, really shit year. And then I guess I was coming up to my final exams, and I had already made the decision. I was done with horses, especially when my main horse had died. That really put the nail in the coffin for me. I said, right, I'm done now. I can't replace him, nor do I want to. So I ended up then going into hospital with just sickness, not knowing what was wrong with me. So I ended up having to get my appendix out, and a few other things was going on with me with my stomach. So I spent 2 weeks in hospital, 2 weeks before my final exams for physio, and did my final exams. So with all of that, the main conclusion that came from it was I was absolutely done with horses. Done. I was leaving the Curragh and I was never coming back. And I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't want to be a physio, even though I was going to qualify as one. I didn't want to do anything. I was just in such a rush. And I guess that I did what a lot of girls do when they're having a shit time in life, or I shouldn't be cursing my mum will give out when she sees this. I downloaded Tinder, and I went hunting down a man, and I swiped a fighter, and we met up and we went on a date, and that fighter is actually one of my training partners in Dublin now. So he was a pro fighter under John Kavanagh and in SPG. And he told me all about martial arts and fighting and Conor McGregor. And sure, I'd never heard of any of this because I was stuck on the back of a horse in the car and didn't look at one thing to another apart from horse racing. So I said to myself after meeting him, nothing further went on with me and him, but I thought, God, this fighting crack sounds class. Like, it's just me. No horse, no money, no bills, no horse boxes that you can crash. It's just literally me and another person in a cage, and we fight each other, and the toughest person wins. And that's how I seen it. And I thought, right, I'm going to give that a go, because I don't have anything else right now that I want to do. So let's give that a shot. And I joined the gym a week later.
Yeah, like that, the year you just described with all the incidents with the horses and yourself, like, it's, we talk about 2020 being a bad year, but it's tough going, really. So
yeah, 2020's been a walk in the park.
So once you start training, and I do a bit of jiu-jitsu, and I suppose everybody who gets involved in those kind of sports, combat sports we'll call them, and there comes a point where you decide, will I compete or will I not? Now, it came quite early to me where I turned around and said, no, I won't. I just enjoy training. I like coming in and have a chat, doing a bit of rolling, and that's fine. At what point did that competition things come into your mind? And also, have you always been competitive?
So firstly, before I even joined the gym, I'd already decided I was going to be a fighter and I was going to compete. Okay. Before I even gave it a go, for me, it was, I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to be a jockey. And I wasn't just going to be a jockey. I wanted to be the best female jockey there ever was. I'm going to be a fighter, and I'm going to be a champion. Like, that was it immediately. It's my personality that if I'm going to go do something, then I want to be the best. I want to win. I'm extremely competitive with everything I do. So that was from the start. And once I went into that gym the first night and I rolled around the floor with a load of big Polish lads, I thought, yeah, I can do this. This is all me now. I'm going to be the next Ronda Rousey. And I believed that from the first day. And
so you should. And I think, I can't quite tap into that mindset. And look, because obviously we're all so different when it comes to those kind of, I've never really been a competitive person, but I always admire the people that are, and I see the people that are who want to be, you know, the next, you know, Khabib or whoever it is, and I hugely admire that, and I think it's class, and obviously I would try and help them as much as I can by being a good training partner and things like that. So then, Danny, you're in there and you're training, and then you go to your coach and you say, right, I want a competition. Where was the competition first place first, and how were the nerves beforehand then?
Well, so I started out in Hosaria and Nace, and then from there, I after my exams in the middle of the summer of that year, my brother brought me off to America to a Conor McGregor fight, and we travelled around the west coast of America. So I had done a few months in Hosaria at that point, and then during the trip in America, I said to my brother, I don't want to go home. I want to, he was living in Canada at the moment. I said, I'm going to stay here with you. So, and the way my mindset was, and I was had such a bad year, it wasn't really that surprising that ended up happening. So I moved to Canada straight from Vegas from the Conor McGregor fight. No work visa, nothing, and just a bag of holiday clothes. And I lived there for 7 months, and I trained in Canada. And I had my first competition in Vancouver, just jiu-jitsu competition, and not MMA straight away. And I won gold, and I in one division, and I medaled in the other. And I remember the first competition being extremely stressed, thinking, oh my God, this is so intense. And I wanted to win so badly. I didn't enjoy a second of it. I hated it. And I remember coming home on the bus back to our apartment, and my brother telling me, you just need to keep doing what you did today, and you will 100% be in the UFC. And I remember thinking, but not telling him, I don't think I ever want to do that again. That was so stressful. I think it's going to take me a week to get over the nerves or the adrenaline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't like, I definitely didn't enjoy it at the start. From there, I went home that Christmas, and I joined SPG in January. And within 6 months, I was on the pro team training under John. And every competition that year, I'd say, was similar experience, very stressful, very worrying what the result would be, and quite erratic. So that would be, I suppose, a bit of advice I'd give to anyone that's starting out. Don't listen to people if you don't feel like that particular day you felt really nervous and you really didn't enjoy it. It doesn't mean that you don't really want it, or you don't really like it. It's just that at the moment, competition is really stressful experience. But as you get better and you get more experience, you'll start to enjoy it. It's not a reason to stop competing. The first few aren't meant to be easy.
I went to a competition with some of my training partners from Fusion here, and it was a jiu-jitsu one. So a couple of lads straight away after said exactly what you just said there. Was like exhausting. I didn't like it, even though they'd done well. They'd won a couple of fights and stuff. And that obviously goes back to what you're saying then. It was just the fact that it was stressful and tiring, and the nerves are playing a huge part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think then sometimes you have to be careful who you say that to, because I know I've heard some people saying, oh, maybe it's just not for you then, and maybe you should just do it as a hobby. And, if you really feel like you really want to be a fighter, you really want to be good at jiu-jitsu, don't let that competition experience for the whole first 2 years affect your decision. Because I think it took 2 full years of competing before I actually put a smile on my face and said, I'm enjoying this now.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and that's good advice as well, because like I said, I've heard it before where people are just no. So it is good advice to kind of to hear from a pro. So here's a few things that I wanted to ask you. I actually we had Kieran Davern on there. It was a few weeks back now, but I was asking about preparation between, say, if you're you know, you're in between fights, we'll say, but then when you jump to fight camp, and the difference between your workout, how intense does it get compared to a normal training week for you?
To be honest, out of camp is more intense. The training load is higher,
Okay.
but the weight cut isn't a factor. So coming into camp, I've already done hours of rounds. My strength and conditioning increases, so all the weights increase, the intensity increases. My cardiovascular program is increased. I'm doing loads and loads of rounds, so like as many rounds as I can possibly do every week I'm doing. So this is out of camp. You put in as much work load as you can, so that when I get into camp, I can rein it in a little bit and do a few less rounds. The strength conditioning eases up. The cardio is very specific, and that's when you're likely to get injured because you're in a calorie deficit trying to make the weight. So if you haven't been doing anything in between the camps or doing like kind of off season stuff, I think then because of the calorie deficit, that's not a good time to ramp it up the last 8 weeks before a fight, which makes it different to other sports. So other sports that you don't have to weigh in for, maybe you can just ramp it up for 12 weeks and compete. But if you're fully fueled, you probably will be able to do that. But for me, that hasn't worked out. So that's the way we're working now. Is out of camp is yes, let's push as hard as we can to get so many rounds in, and then in camp is very dialed in to that opponent.
Well, so I was watching some of your fights during the week, some of the ones that I can get on YouTube, and so I wanted to kind of touch on coaches then, because I saw, like, obviously you've already mentioned John, but you were cornered with Paddy Houlihan, and obviously you're Alan McCormick, he's your striking coach, right?
Yeah.
So who's then, just to get an idea where you're at now, like who's then when you go to roll or jiu-jitsu, who's the coach for that?
So my earlier fights, I had lots of different corners. Paddy was one of my corners for my earlier fights, but he owns his own gym now in Dublin, and he's not actually a part of my camp anymore. But in my early years, Paddy was definitely, a huge help to me, and always jumped on a plane and cornered me when I needed him. So I can't thank Paddy enough for that. Since I've turned pro, it's been literally John and Alan. So John does all of my wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He supervises all my MMA spars. And then Alan's my fiance. He's the one I was giving out about putting the TV on. And he's my striking coach and training partner. So he did some jiu-jitsu with Kieran Davern for 6 months, and that has been a huge help. So he can roll, he can do MMA rounds with me at home here in Mullingar. So both of them are kind of all I've needed in terms of martial arts at the moment. And then I've got like strength conditioning coach and cardiovascular coach. There's been so many people though over the last 5 years or nearly 6 years that have had but a piece to the puzzle. You know, there's so many different jiu-jitsu coaches and striking coaches that have helped me. But right now, since I turned pro, we've just really dialed it into only John and Alan and tried to keep both of them on the same page, so it's easier for me to get through all the sequences and material, I guess.
Yeah, of course. It makes a lot of sense. So if for the people who haven't seen you fight, then Danni, how would you describe your fighting style?
And just really quickly, sorry, before that, because I don't want to not mention him, but Dave Roach is is a new coach in SVG that John took on, I think, a year ago or a year and a half ago. So he's his assistant coach.
Okay.
Whenever John has gone away to fights, Dave does all of the MMA work. So I just don't want to leave him out. He's a huge help as well. So my fighting style. So I guess to look at my earlier fights, my fighting style, so people like to say, is Vanderlei Silva, kind of brawling, running forward, throwing punches, blocking punches with my face, not happy unless I'm in the depths of a war. And that was kind of my first few fights, how they went down. And then I went to the World Championships and I started to wrestle, because that was how you won a World Championship. So even though I thought I was a great striker, at the minute I got hit in the first fight in the World Championships, in one of the quarterfinals, I said, no way am I doing this striking business. I'm going to grab her, pull her onto the ground, and make sure I secure my spot in the next level, in the next bracket. So I wrestled all through the middle of the rest of my amateur career, and then I turned pro and I tried to put it together. So I tried to bring back a bit of the old Danni that threw punches and was never afraid to be in a fire, and then also keeping the technical side, trying to get a bit better technically at striking. And then, you know, I always end up taking them down every round and ground and pound, or my last fight I got a submission. So it's kind of pressure, go forward, throw punches or take them down, whatever's, you know, more effective at the moment.
If you don't mind me kind of chiming in, like a person who's never fought in their life, but who enjoys watching MMA, I suppose. From just the bits I saw, I saw someone who's always on the front foot, and it obviously puts huge pressure on the person then going backwards all the time. But I understand what you're saying about the brawling side of things, but you did have very good head movement in a lot of those fights. So you weren't getting smacked around, you know, every shot wasn't landing, so you were moving. But I like what you say about the wrestling, because once you were getting people up against the cage, and that's such an exhausting thing anyway, but you were a lot of pressure on top and dragging them to the floor, like you say. But your cardio must be pretty insane, because even watching you in the Grapple Kings 3 that you were competing in, was it last year, I think?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Yeah, like you were just like, I mean, she never got off. She was in the bottom the whole time, but it was constant pressure. And I can kind of attest in a little small way that is very, very difficult to do, to kind of control some of the way it is. So that would just be my very, very limited, you know, knowledge on the subject. So you mentioned Alan, your fiance, yeah, and he's your striking coach. Are there many challenges to having, you know, your coach as also your kind of life partner?
So as many challenges as there may be, there's definitely 5 times the positives. So before I met Alan, I was doing it all on my own, and I was going home every night and I'd be upset if things had gone badly. I'd be anxious. I didn't really know where I was going. I just kept throwing more stuff on the wall and was hoping something would stick. So I had no one really to debrief with, or to, you know, hone in on what we're actually doing. And then when I met Alan, it all changed then. It was that I had someone to just listen to me and listen how things were going and not going, and hone in on what we could work on and kind of advise me on what I should be working on. So that has been a massive positive. And from there, like now, sure, we own a house here in Mullingar, and I swear if someone lived with us, like, I don't think they'd tolerate us for longer than 10 minutes. It's just from the moment we get up, fights go on the TV, and until we go to bed at night. We might put a series on Netflix, but sometimes we'll get bored of that and we'll end up putting the fights back on again. Yeah. So it's all day. And as much as I talk about fighting and about sports science, I'm obsessed with all the scientific stuff. He never stops talking about striking and Muay Thai. So it's like it's constantly going on here in my head and in his head.
What's the name of Alan's gym over there?
Relentless Martial Arts.
Okay, I just wanted to get a little shout out. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to go through this little ad here, Danni. So just give us 2 seconds, all right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Fusion Training Centre, Monksland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. So, how does MMA help you with your anxiety?
God, well, first of all, if I really think about it, so I've thought about it lots of times, and how did I end up here where I am now? Because right now I feel really level, like I'm not too high, I'm not too low, I'm quite level, and I'm really happy I got to this point, and I'd like to be able to try and advise other people or help other people how they could get to where I am now. So I try to like go back and see when did it change or what changed, that I feel like this now. And I think similar to when I moved to the Curragh, MMA created, tiredness, exhaustion, and just somewhere to be for so many hours in the day. So I literally worked myself out of my mental health problems because I had to always be in the gym. So I woke up, I went to the gym, then I went to work, then I went to the gym at lunchtime, then I went to work again, then I went straight back to the gym. And the only day I'd struggle with my mental health was a day I had to take off, or that I was so tired I had to, bail on a training session, and I'd be annoyed with myself.
Yeah.
So I focused my anxiety into training hard, and that worked definitely for a number of years. And then after the World Championships, I definitely hit kind of a eureka moment where, or it wasn't quite as positive as that, but after the World Championships, I lost. I came second. I got a silver medal. I still call it losing. I was so disappointed that I lost. I was devastated. And that year I got injury after injury, and I got a bad concussion as well. And I ended up not being able to turn pro for a year and a half or something after the World Championships, when I wanted to turn pro straight away. And that year I said to myself, why am I doing all this? I thought about giving it up. I didn't see the positives that it was bringing to my life. And it was then that I kind of said, you're actually doing this for yourself. It makes you a better person. You get to prove to yourself, like I get to go to bed with myself every night and say, you're reaching your full potential in life by doing this. You're not doing it for anyone else. I'm not doing it for Alan. I'm not doing it for my mom. I'm not doing it for anyone. I'm just doing it for me. And that goal to be the best I can be, that has made me calm and relaxed and much more settled now. So I focus on getting up in the morning and being the best I can be, getting better, improving, training hard, and the results will sort themselves out. So I guess that's where it brought me. Initially, it brought me exhaustion, which gave me no reason to be anxious. And then secondly, it made me really mature and look into myself and say, well, what have you been chasing like your whole life, between chasing veterinary, chasing being a jockey, chasing this world championship? You're constantly looking for something to make you happy. And I realized that it wasn't the thing itself. It was me getting the most out of me was what actually makes me happy.
That's we've done 41 episodes before this, and I've prattled on about myself all the time, and I've never summed it up as well as you did just there. But do you find, actually, because I like to ask people who are involved in martial art, that like you don't have time to be anxious if you're rolling with someone and you be rolling with top class people like all the time. There is no time to be anxious.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah. And if you are anxious, it's just going to get worse a lot quicker. You've got to be problem solving. You have to be thinking about what's happening and what am I going to do next. Try not to let your mind wander anywhere else. Just deal with the problem right in front of you.
So tell us about when. How long ago was it? And like, tell us around the time when Bellator came calling.
So it was after the World Championships, John started talking about Bellator coming to Europe to run this European series, and that it was going to be a big deal and that lots of people were going to get signed. And he said that he was going to push me and Kieran Clark as well. And there was a number of others in the gym, but kind of me and Kieran had come through the IMAFs together. So he was talking to me about this from, early, I suppose, 2018, and he kept going on and talking about it, and I just thought, it's too good to be true kind of thing. I'll believe it when I see it. And then with the kind of the year and a half I had off, but I had got one more fight in, I think, in my amateur career, and then I was injured and stuff. It kept getting put off, but John kept saying it will be there when you're ready. So he was true to his word, and I got sent the contract in an email, and sure, I couldn't believe it. Like, I just couldn't believe that I was getting this contract, and my name was. It was just ridiculous. And then 3 months later, I was making my pro debut in the 3 Arena.
I was just going to come on to that because I saw the fight. I was watching. It was on TV, but my coach Martin Hickey was there, in the 3 Arena for the fight, and he was texting me a bit, or texting the group. We have a small group of coaches, and on Facebook Messenger. So he's texting a bit, and he's saying Danni Neilan from Roscommon. Right now, I live in Roscommon. I'm from Westmeath, but I actually live in Roscommon. But so I'm like, I'm not going to tell the whole thing because you were there. But did your fight get pushed up on the card?
Yeah, so I was meant to be one of the later prelims. So both me and Kieran Clark were meant to be the last 2 prelims. And what happens is, oh, sorry, I just went blank there for me. So what happens is, just for people that don't know out there, on any fight night, professional fight night, the prelims are usually streamed free or on one medium, and then the main card is sold pay-per-view or sold to a channel. So that's what happens pretty much every fight night. So the prelims have a cut-off time they have to stop because the TV deal starts on the main card. So they had put in 13 prelims, a ridiculous number, and I suppose they thought they were going to get pullouts, and there was no pullouts. So it came to like fight number 9, and we got the heads up. I was meant to be fight 13, I think, and Kieran was meant to be 12, that we were going to be cut, that they had to start the TV at the certain time, and that we were going to be pushed to the end. We're called a swing bout then. So they'll either swing us, which means they'll throw us into the main card if an opportunity arises, or they'll put us on at the end when the TV deal stops and when everyone's gone. So, and that's at about 12:30 at night. It's like a terrible thing to happen. And we were both on pro debuts. So we're like, oh, for God's sake. So we knew at that stage that was happening. So I messaged my brother and said, please bring me food. We're going to be fighting till 12 o'clock at night. I was meant to fight at 6:30 or 7. And he went and got me food, and we told everyone that I was getting moved to later in the card. And then one of my teammates, Richard Kiley, got knocked out, and one of the guys that runs Bellator kind of ran in and gave me a heads up, and he said, Danni, get warm, we're going to walk you in 5 minutes, and there's a slot now for you to jump in. And sure, we literally just ripped the clothes off me, and I ran to the toilet, and I think I hit pads for like a minute, and next thing I know, I'm running down the stairs, like getting pushed out the door really quickly to stuff me in this little time slot they had. And that happened to be co-main event on TV3, and there I was, just in the cage, just in front of all these people, not realizing that like 10 minutes ago I was lying on a couch, not expecting to be fighting for another 2 hours or something, or hour. So it was crazy. Then I went in.
Sorry, go
Go
on.
on. Just then in the fight itself, Conor McGregor was cage side, and I spent most of the fight the far side of the cage in my opponent's corner, and he was right behind them. So he cornered me through, I think, like 1.5 rounds of the fight, and shook my hand afterwards and said, "Well done," and whatever. So it was just a crazy night. It's just, I just can't believe everything that went on.
So can I ask you then, because obviously, like, you were pushed into that card, and the place was hopping, the atmosphere was class. I mean, this is just looking on the TV, you could tell it was class. But how much of the atmosphere can you soak up? Now, I know there's a difference from when the walk in and when you're in fighting, but even in the walk in, is your mind set solely on one thing, and the rest is just kind of background noise?
Well, I think um, I think the audience thinks that we're happy they're there, but to be quite honest, we're not, and we prepare. Well, I know for me anyway, and some of my teammates have spoke about this. We prepare all camp to prepare for that. So the minute I start walking, turn everything else off. All I keep doing is telling myself what the game plan is, reminding myself that I've worked really hard for 3 months, and it's very important at this moment in time that I remember what the game plan is and that I do it. Because if I go out thinking that I'm Beyonce, swinging my flag over my head and enjoying the music and waving to mom in the crowd, and if I soak it all up, I don't think I'd have that focus or that razor sharp focus to make sure that all the training has gone to good use, that I'm totally focused on that person. So to be quite honest with you, I'm delighted that 10,000 people or however many thousand people come and fill the Three Arena, and they want to see me and my teammates and the other people fighting. I'm so happy about that because it means we get paid, they're coming.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, it's a big part of that night is, can you control yourself during that time? Because that is crazy. Like, I'm not sure, have you ever stood up in front of people and done a PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah.
It's similar. It's not actually a whole lot different than
Okay.
that. Even 20 people in a room and they're all just listening and looking at you. But while you're doing the PowerPoint, you now have to like do your leaving cert exam in front of them 20 people, and they watch every word. That's kind of how I describe it to someone that hasn't walked out, but that's what it's like. It's scary.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And what even, I suppose, talking about like you getting to compete in your home country is one thing, but then there is the flip side of it, the fact that all of those people want you to win, and that's like 10,000 people's expectations on your shoulders as well. So it's like twice as bad than, say, a regular fight for you.
Yeah, and then that kind of brings me back to what I was saying earlier about why am I doing this? Why am I in MMA? And I think that I'm really happy I came to that conclusion before I turned pro. I only fight for me to get the best out of me. So as happy as I am that they all want me to win, I really don't care. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but after I won that fight, I took a second on the mat and I said, "Well done," to myself. And I said, "Well done, you deserve that." And I only talked to myself. And then I stood up and waved to everybody. But if you're not doing it for yourself and you're doing it for Instagram followers or for notoriety, and you're trying to prove yourself in the world to people, then I think that's a totally different game then.
Yeah.
That's where it can be a negative experience than having the crowd.
So now that you just led on perfectly to my next question, can you tell me about the very strange experience of training during the lockdown and fighting during the lockdown as well?
Yeah, so thankfully, I'm on a good promotion, and they have financial backing. So they brought us all to Milan in September and October. There was 3 shows in a row. I was on the first show, and they matched us all, got us all to a fight, and paid us all the European fighters. So fair play to them. It was brilliant. It was a strange fight week. We were totally locked down. We were picked up at the airport and COVID tested immediately, and then we were locked in our bedrooms until the results come out. And we were like really isolated for the whole fight week, which was boring, but actually quite it kind of led to quite good performances, because people were locked away and I had time to just focus and de-stress, and there was no like ticket selling or meeting people and messages and whatever that happens when you're at home in Dublin. There's no family either because they're not allowed. So it was a positive experience when I think about how I could perform really well and in the zone, because I didn't have any fight week stress at all. The fight night itself was strange. They brought us in individually on a bus. There was a big kind of basketball arena to warm up in. There was only 2 or 3 fighters allowed in at a time. Once you finished in the basketball warm-up place, you had to pack up all your stuff and carry it with you out towards the cage, because the minute you fought, you had to leave immediately. So it was all different. The fight itself, I never felt better, because we fight every week in the gym, and that's exactly what it was like. I walked out, there was no one there. There's never, like, there was people there, the medical people and the photographers, but that's the same number of people that would watch me spar in the gym. So it felt like I was going in to spar, just it was a different sparring partner, and I could just totally focus, get the job done.
Do you think that was your best performance so far in Bellator?
Yeah, I do.
You got the submission in was it the second round you got the submission in?
Yeah.
Got submission.
Yeah, it was a tough fight. That's why I think it was my best one. Yeah. She was a tough cookie the first round. I knew she was going to come out like a bat out of hell. And I'm most proud of kind of how I handled her in the first round and didn't get overwhelmed by her. And then I knew I had her. The minute I got up off my stool, I knew, oh, you're gone now. Like, you have no chance. You're so tired. So, it was definitely my best performance.
Yeah, the submission, and I bet everybody who is trained in jiu-jitsu has been put in that submission before, and it is one of the worst spots you can find yourself in. And I guess from someone who's found himself in that position, I kind of felt bad to see a fighter go down like that. But at the same time, you're Irish, you're from close enough to me, so you know the person I wanted to win won. Put it that way. So Danni, you got big news then. Was it a couple of weeks ago? You got a new contract, didn't you?
Yeah. So my original contract was for 4 fights, and that was my 3rd. So instead of letting me fight out my deal, which means then that I would be a free agent, they sent me a new contract before that happened, which is a positive thing. So it means that they don't want to let you go after the next fight. So a good few people got let go from Bellator with COVID and everything. The European series has took quite a hit. So they were messaging lads or emailing people saying that they weren't renewing their contracts. And I could hear all this going on in the background. And I was a bit nervous. And then I got an email, and there was my new contract. I was so shocked that happened. So I was delighted. I'm signed up for another 4 fights, and they gave me a pay rise, a substantial one. So I can't be happier, and I'm so glad I submitted that girl in Milan, because I think that was the difference.
Do you know though, because if you take into account what you're saying about people not getting back in because of restriction or financial problems and stuff, that I suppose every promotion's having, it shows how much faith they have in you as a fighter to kind of show you that, that support to give you the contract. And I know you're saying a good few people got them, but at the same time, I'm sure just as many people didn't get them.
Yeah, that was it. There was only me and Kieran Clark again. He's always a person in my story. It's so strange. We go through the exact same path, but he got offered the same contract as well. So yeah, it's amazing. And sometimes you think, why do they like me and they don't like someone else? I see some other people that they dropped and I'm like, oh, but I think they're really good. Why did they do that? I kind of feel for everyone else, but they like what they're seeing so far, so I just need to keep doing the same thing.
Exactly. It'd be wrong for me not to bring this up, but can you tell me whose idea was it to do the TikTok videos?
It was definitely mine.
What was it?
Yeah. So firstly, I was watching Love Island flat out before COVID, and then I seen that 2 people from Love Island started doing these TikToks, and I didn't know what TikTok was, but I followed the people off the couple off Love Island. And I was like to Alan, oh, it'd be so cute if we could be just like them, and we could do a really cute TikTok video. So we actually tried to copy their first one, and it was a very poor Roscommon version of their TikTok, or Mullingar version. But I was so proud of myself and Alan that we actually pulled off the moves. We uploaded it, and we got so much hate, some love, but mostly hate, because people are just such haters. And then on, we did TikToks for the gym because we were locked down and we wanted to keep people interested. We were doing loads of different martial arts challenges. So then we stuck in a few TikToks, and sure, since then we've been uncontrollable with them. We're just love the crack with it now. So we do.
But you know what what I would take away from it, and when I saw them first, it was during your lockdown from the gym, and obviously we were all locked down here from the gym as well, and like, it's great to see a head coach do something like that, right? For the people who go to the gym. But it's on the other side of it, it's also great to see a professional fighter who everybody will see from the outside, who may not know you, as like someone who's going in there, punching the head of someone, or choking someone, or whatever it is. But you get to see kind of a fun side, a humorous side, that they're a bit of crack. I think that's very important, and I think it's very important during the time now and the time back when the first lockdown, is to kind of see that side of people. Do you not think?
Yeah, it actually is really nice just to be yourself. People definitely, like, not everybody, but some people get a perception of what you're supposed to be like or whatever. And as a female fighter, there's so many different kind of personas you can put out there, and you can be putting the sexy pictures up on Instagram, or there's lots of different ways of going about it, or you can be that real tough badass that never smiles. But I like doing TikToks. I'm not doing it ungenuinely. That's just personality. So it's nice just to put my personality out there, and I'm intense in the cage, but outside of the cage, I'm actually a pediatric physio. I just recently gave up my job to concentrate on fighting, but I love children. I love children, and they're my favorite classes to teach in the gym. And I'm actually quite soft when it comes to stuff like that. So it's nice just to be yourself. It's refreshing.
Absolutely. And if people want to see those TikToks, they follow Danni or follow Alan on Instagram, and you will see them, and they're great crack. Just before I let you go, and people who do already follow you will know what I'm talking about, and others will think, what am I going on about? So I saw you've 2 dogs, don't you?
Yeah, Koa and Kiki.
What's the name of the big one?
Koa.
So did Santa survive the other night?
Santa is still alive, but she is getting more and more confident around him. So last night there was another incident where Santa's leg nearly got torn off, and only that I caught her in the act. So she is trying her damnedest. So she is. Now she's probably getting antagonized too much by us turning him on all the time. But yeah, so far he's survived, but I don't know how long it's going to last.
She's a gorgeous dog, and I was showing my landlady loves dogs. We have two downstairs, and so I showed a picture, and she was like, "Oh, I want that dog." But when I was looking at what I loved about the video that you put up was that Cole was was very reluctantly taking Santa away from the Christmas tree, but Santa's singing and got lights going on, so there's a touch of nervousness, and you know, it was a funny video to watch. Like, and how do you have a cat as well? Was there a picture of a cat?
Yeah. So a cat strayed into the gym last week, and we took him in, and we really wanted to keep him. Well, Alan loves cats. He really wanted to keep him, but Koa is half pit bull and half American bulldog, and unfortunately she has drive, and we tried really hard to get Koa and the cat to get on, but it just wasn't a safe environment for the cat. And as tough and all as Koa is, she's a big baby at the back of it, but unpredictable. So we just couldn't trust her. You know, she's half afraid of Santa, but then if you let her in the room with the cat, you wouldn't know whether she'd pin him or scare him. So yeah, there was a lot of standoffs going off between the glass doors for a week. And we tried everything the internet said about how to introduce them, and it just didn't go well. So he got rehomed with actually a jiu-jitsu guy from another gym here in Mullingar, and he's having a great time with him.
Good. Listen, Danni, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was actually different to most of my interviews, which is unusual. I feel like I talked about the same things over and over again, and it gets really boring. But this was really, really fun. We definitely talked about other stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Well, like I said, you can always come back. Just stay on for a minute, just while I read this out when I finish, because I just want to get a photo, if that's all right.
Yeah, perfect.
Before we go, I just want to say thank you to John, as usual, for doing all the technical stuff that I can't do, and to his family, and to Megan, to Ger, my mum, my dad, my grandfather. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like I said, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under the Weekly Wheatley, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc., etc. Thanks to everyone for listening, and I'm still doing the Sunday night stuff, so tune in as usual. Thanks very much, and all the best.